Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I came, I guess, a year and a half ago to visit the museum and to see the city a little bit. I was obviously astonished by the beauty of the place and the history. And the museum is really fantastic. Obviously, it has a great history, and the volume of it and the external facade is so astonishing. So I was super excited to obviously be able to come here for a week and paint on site on the wall, and yeah, having an artwork be here for a little bit.
Now, there are issues involved in painting in an art gallery where other works of art are
Yes.
already hanging, and it's not so much splashing paint around. There's an issue here with dust, isn't there?
Yeah, so I'm using soft pastel, which is basically pure pigment and pure dust, basically. So we had to build a big chamber to kind of insulate the room when I was working from the other wall. You can see actually on the side of the wall the painting is still gone because it's where the chamber was. Now we removed it and we can see the wall. So it was sealed so the dust couldn't go away. But it's a little bit of a messy process.
Looking towards the other end of the gallery, a young lady over there I was talking to earlier actually said to me it's a bit like an NSI crime scene because all the works of art are covered up there.
It is indeed, yeah, because the dust is pigments and it goes everywhere, so we have to be like pretty careful when we protect the room. And as you say, like the what was inside the chamber is it has been contaminated by the pigments, so it has to be cleaned up before we use it for something else.
You mentioned your visit to the Holburne a couple of years ago. That's when you saw a work of art which has basically inspired what you've done now. Tell me about that.
So yeah, I mean, the idea, like when we started to talk about doing a project here, was to do something on site or maybe mixing with the collections. And I took a few photos, including the painting that I based this mural on. And when I was like imagining what to do here, I think this painting started to really drawn to me because I think it's focusing maybe the angle of the collection of Holburne, and this very kind of unusual and very kind of humoristic and actually kind of provocative taste that he had, because of course now the building is pretty grand and you have those portraits, those Gainsborough portraits, and aristocrats like in the beautiful outfit. But I think Holburne was obviously very interesting also in collecting like fight scenes. There's like like kind of the Brogles type of like wedding with people getting drunk. So he probably had a lot of humor and kind of uncanniness in his taste. So I want to kind of honor that in the museum that maybe you don't see because the work is quite small, right? And the house is so grand that now we have like his taste blown up.
Well, yeah, the original is much
Much
smaller
smaller.
than your interpretation. You've chosen quite a violent scene there, a man raising a dagger to no doubt lower it into the chest of the peasant he's fighting with.
Yeah, this is like a street fight scenes, which it is a genre that was fairly like, I mean, not maybe the fight scenes, but more like common kind of like peasants kind of scenes, as you said, with the Bruegel, with the wedding and people like kind of getting drunk, or like it's in a kind of Golden Dutch area. There's a few of those paintings by different painters. But I thought it was kind of interesting again to highlight this taste of Holburne, that when you bought all those different works, because you couldn't buy like Rosdal kind of landscapes, like much more quiet landscapes. But he kind of chose, and there's a few other ones that are like that in the collections. And I thought it was kind of interesting to yeah, again to highlight that fight scene.
You've added something quite ethereal, quite dreamy in the middle of this mural. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I created that pastel that comes on top of that scene. And what I kind of like the idea is that the portrait is very yeah, serene and kind of quiet, almost like a ghost's presence. But the horse is also like pretty energetic and we call it almost like in a violent scenes. They actually from the George Stubbs paintings, where it's the horse that is attacked by a lion or scared by a lion. So basically, this kind of serene portrait is sandwiched between two fairly violent scenes.
It's the only bit of colour on this wall, but you're exhibiting art elsewhere, aren't you? Which is much more colourful, slightly smaller. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so obviously the scale is a part of this exhibition that I've been doing here. And in the museum itself, there's a lot of very large scales painting. The Gainsborough is obviously massive, and there's like in the Holborn collection, there's like those very tiny enamel on copper paintings. And I like years ago I started to be really drawn by those small painting on copper that was a very popular medium in kind of Golden Age Flemish paintings. And I started basically to reproduce my large pastel into copper. So what I've been doing is that I take my favorite paintings that I've done over the last 15 years that I don't have anymore because they're gone somewhere in the world. And I basically make a copy, a very small version's copy of it with oil and on copper. And that's kind of what you can see here in the other room.
Well, I think it's a beautiful collection, and I think a lot of people are going to be amazed by all of it. And I would like to put a secret camera up in the corner of this gallery just to get the reaction on their faces when they come in through the door. I've got to ask you, is this the most unusual location you've painted a mural, or does another mural beat this one?
I mean, it's a beautiful, great locations, and the subject of the mural is definitely my most unusual probably I ever done in a type of museum like that. But I've been really like fortunate to work in different museums around the world, and you know, some locations very unusual, but this one is really special, that's for sure.